liked the Bermuda Triangle chili parlor. It was warm and cozy and friendly. The motorcycle guys didn't seem sinister or bad or anything like that. They just ate their Green Death chili and talked quietly amongst themselves. In the kitchen, a radio was playing, some kind of foreign music I'd never heard before. It sounded like something between banjos and bells. It was nice. Samuel Cluggarsh walked in. He saw us and walked over. "Hello, students," he said. "Mind if I join you?" He went to the counter and came back with 2 bowls of Green Death. Then he went back to the counter again and returned with an enormous stack of crackers and a mug of hot chocolate with double marshmallows and whipped cream. I couldn't for the life of me figure out why this guy wasn't fat. Samuel Cluggarsh crumbled the crackers into his 2 bowls of Green Death chili. "How are you doing with the hyperstellar archaeology?" he asked us. One of the Knights of Power spun around and glowered at us for a moment. He had a big, bushy mustache. Then he turned back to his friends and his chili. The motorcycle guy had distracted me. Samuel Cluggarsh spoke again. "It was hyperstellar archaeology, wasn't it? Mu and Lemuria and Atlantis and all that?" "It's been very interesting, Mr. Cluggarsh," Aln Mndlshn said. "At first we couldn't understand the book at all. It just seemed to be full of all sorts of wacky facts. Then the hyperstellar archaeology course actually mentioned us by name." "You're putting me on," Samuel Cluggarsh said. "No, it's the truth," I said. "The book said that the ancient Lemurian sages had predicted the day 2 boys named Leonard Nimoy and Aln Mndlshn, that's us, would read an account of their deeds." Samuel Cluggarsh looked stunned. "Are you actually sure this happened?" he asked. "It's all right there in black and white, Mr. Cluggarsh. Actually blue and white, since it was mimeographed," Aln Mndlshn said. The biker with the bushy mustache, the one who had turned around and looked at us, was obviously listening in. He leaned back in his chair that he could see, so he could hear what we were saying. I never know what to do in situations like that. I mean, it's worse than when you're the one listening and you can't help it. Sometimes people have family fights in restaurants or holler at their kids or talk about all kinds of personal stuff, and there you are, sitting right next to them. I didn't really care if this guy in the Knights of Power jacket listened or not, I decided. There was no way he was going to know what we were talking about anyway. If I hadn't actually seen proof that you guys could attain State 26, I'd never believed this for a minute, Samuel Cluggarsh said. As is, I have another copy of the course at my shop. I've never read it. That is to say, I've never read it for a long time, but I'll have a look at it. Where exactly did it mention you guys by name? It was just before the start where it talks about the Yojimbo's Japanese-English dictionary, I said. The motorcycle rider, the one who'd been eavesdropping, had a coughing fit. Samuel Cluggarsh turned around and pounded him on the back. "What's the matter, buddy? Did something go down the wrong way?" he said. "You've got to go slow with that Green Death if you're not used to it." He turned back to us. "Eating chili is an art," Samuel Cluggarsh said. "The first thing you have to learn is to ignore the pain. You see, pain is your body's way of warning you that something is happening to it that is harmful. For example, if you put your finger in a candle flame, the pain tells you to take it out again before it gets burned to a crisp. Now, in the case of eating hot chili, the pepper gives the illusion of pain. But in this case, it isn't harmful. There's nothing better for you than hot chili. So you just have to say to yourself that this isn't going to harm you." Samuel Cluggarsh stopped talking to swallow a big spoonful of Green Death. I could have sworn I saw blue sparks jumping when he dug into it. Then he covered his mouth with his fingertips and gave a modest burp. Dr. Prince walked in. He was holding a slip of paper. I guessed it was the page from his notebook on which he had noted the address of the Bermuda Triangle chili parlor. His glasses were all fogged up. "Look," I said, "there's my psychologist." Dr. Prince had gotten into an argument with the guy behind the counter. It seems they only made corn muffins in the morning, and were usually all out of them by evening. Dr. Prince had come in for the corn muffins, and corn muffins he wanted. He was giving the guy a hard time. Dr. Prince saw us and came over. "Oh, hello, Leonard," he said. "I thought you told me this place had the best corn muffins in town. Now I come here, and they won't sell me any. I'm most upset." Samuel Cluggarsh stood up. "Our young colleague is correct about the corn muffins," he said, "but neglected to tell you that what this place is really famous for is the Green Death chili, a secret recipe of the owner. I advise you to try it. By the way, I am Professor Samuel Cluggarsh, Fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society." He shook hands with Dr. Prince, and then took him by the arm to the counter. The 2 men came back to the table with a bowl of Green Death apiece. It was Cluggarsh's third. "Excuse me for just a moment," Samuel Cluggarsh said. and returned to the counter. "Ah, Leonard," Dr. Prince said. "You must excuse my perturbed state a moment ago. I became unreasonable when I was denied gratification. I become unreasonable when I am denied gratification I have been anticipating." "This is your young friend, Aln Mndlshn," I supplied the name. "Ah, yes, he is, and is this other gentleman, Professor Klugarsh, the one you were telling me about? The one who sold you the course in hyperstellar archaeology," Samuel Klugarsh said. He had returned to the table, balancing 4 cups of hot chocolate with double marshmallows and whipped cream. Out of his pocket he took a great many saltines and deposited them on the table. "A fascinating topic, hyperstellar archaeology. We'll have a good old scientific discussion in a bit. But first, enjoy your meal, Doctor. I'm curious to know what you think of the Green Death chili." Dr. Prince scooped up a big spoonful of the stuff. At first, after he'd popped it in his mouth, he had a sort of musing expression. Then he looked pleased. Then he looked surprised. Then he got very red. Then he grabbed handfuls of saltines and stuffed them into his mouth. By this time, he was sweating freely. Then he ran to the stainless steel water dispenser and gulped 3 glasses of water. When he came back to the table, tears were streaming down his face. He loosened his collar and sat down. "Without a doubt, the best chili I've ever tasted," he said to Samuel Klugarsh. Samuel Klugarsh leaned across the table and clapped Dr. Prince on the shoulder. "A gentleman and a scholar," he said. "Now eat up. If you don't go into shock from the first spoonful, it's clear sailing after that. Eat up now. Then we'll have a good chat."